for the introduction and sorry for the delay. I just thought I'd talk today a little bit in kicking off the winter school on Fog Edge Computing with a little bit about the IEEE Standards Association. Since the IEEE SA has decided to sponsor this event, you might wonder why, because this is a school, not a standards meeting. But turns out that the IEEE SA has a lot of activities and facilities and programs that I think bear on making Fog Edge Computing a reality. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about those. So for those of you who don't know, and I see we have hundreds of people online already, so IEEE Standards Association is a part of the IEEE, and it's the part that develops on sort of a global platform standards to promote public safety, health, well-being, contribute to a sustainable future, and advance global technologies, but not just advance global technologies, but deliver them to the market. And that's really what standards do. And so this shows you a little bit about what are the different kinds of activities that the Standards Association provides. So can people see my pointer? All right, well, we'll start in the upper left in case you can't. So industry connections. I'll go through all of these just very briefly by telling the name, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail. Industry connections is sort of a pre-standards activity that allows us to incubate things. There's also standardization, well-known standardization, things like 802, which probably 802.11, which probably most of you are using at this very moment. Provides a membership option, both for companies and for individuals, provides conformity assessment for standards, registries like the MAC address on your computer. It provides alliance management so that if you were to build a group of companies who are interested in something together, IEEE SA can support that. And then our newest activity is really in open source. That is providing a community-powered platform that complements standards, but it's not the same thing. Okay, so there we go. So what are these things? So membership allows people in the IEEE community work together. We provide both individual membership for professionals who are just interested in participating in some standards groups, and also corporate membership in which the standards activities tend to be on a one company, one vote type of basis. And if you join, you can become a member, you can vote on standards, you can vote on any standard, by the way. You can become the leader of a working group. You can help elect the governance of the IEEE SA and interact with other industry leaders. Industry Connections is basically, as I mentioned, a pre-standards activity. It allows people to get together before they know they want to do a standard. They may we do a bunch of different ones. We have ones in AI and blockchain, big data, digital inclusion, many others. And so this provides an opportunity for groups to get together and figure out what they want to do, but with the support of the IEEE SA. So some of the things that have been done here include roadmaps, of course, new standards proposals, workshops and events like this one, in fact, is being supported by our Industry Connections program, white papers, technical specifications, databases. And then all of this is the idea is that you would drive a community forward. They would decide together what they would like to do, including a standard, but perhaps other things as well. I've already mentioned standards many times. Standardization, of course, was the original function of the IEEE SA. We currently have over 1,500 standards in a variety of areas. IEEE SA as a standardization body is somewhat different than perhaps some of the international standardization bodies you work with. We're a bottom-up market-driven standardization program. We don't have one country, one vote. We're not a country-based organization. We're an individual or a company-based organization. And the kinds of standards we do are wide, everything from electrical standards, energy resources, telecom, I mentioned 802, AI and the latest things in AI tech ethics. So a very broad variety of things, all of which are derived or targeted at creating new markets. Once a standard is produced, you might want to know whether or not a given piece of technology conforms to that standard. And so IEEE SA provides a conformity assessment and certification program. We don't do the actual certification ourselves, but we will certify that a university or a test lab has implemented the appropriate testing phases in order to do that certification. And again, a variety of examples of these things are available. Registries. So sometimes you just need to find out whether something is unique or not. And the way you do that is through a registry. It essentially means assigning a number to something. So for instance, the most popular registry that IEEE SA administers is the MAC address registry. So every device, every cell phone, every personal computer, all kinds of things like that have media access addresses. That's what MAC stands for. And those are all assigned by the IEEE. And so if you come up with something new in IoT or in some other area, and you want to provide a unique identifier for a user or an application or a device, then IEEE SA can provide that capability to you. Again, we mentioned groups coming together pre-standardization in order to do things. Sometimes these groups are composed of many companies, and companies want someone to support them as they build a trade alliance or an association. And the IEEE SA, in conjunction with what's called the ISTO, the Industry Standards and Technology Organization, can provide that setup for you, and includes management, legal solutions, operational solutions, and a variety of organizations, which I show here on the right, have taken advantage of this. And then finally, our newest activity, which is SA Open. This is an open source platform. It differs from other open source platforms in that it's closely coordinated with the creation of a standard. So you can create a standard, which is essentially a document, and then have open source software that implements that standard that's available to groups. And so this is something that we find that new groups are very interested in doing today. All of these things, you know, from the goals of the IEEE SA, which is to produce technology that's reliable, secure, safe, sustainable, and open, can be filtered through standards, conformity assessment, education, open source, and into the technologies like AI, smart grid, IoT, and communications that will let us build the world of the future. And that's really what IEEE is about. You know, it's technology for humanity, for the future. What are the different areas that IEEE SA has standards, or any of the platforms that I introduced to you in? They include health and life sciences, pharma, clinical health, mobility, like vehicular technology, energy, lots of energy, lots of power and energy, telecommunications, which is really what today's school is about. Some foundational technology, including industrial IoT, and then some new frontiers, including sustainability, cybersecurity, and other new areas. And I think the way to say this is that IEEE SA has organized its staff to support activities among volunteers in each one of these areas. So you pick an area, you'll get a certain set of staff people who will support your activity in that. Each one of these things is called a practice. So here's an example of a given practice in autonomous and intelligent systems. So there's a set of standards, the IEEE 7000 series. We have a certification program called ECPIAS, Ethics Certification Program for Autonomous Intelligent Systems. And then finally, we have a course and a book that enables you to understand what the standards are and how you might contribute to them. A similar sort of thing for smart grid. So we have the IEEE 2030 series and IEEE 1547 for distributed grids. We have a certification program that's actually very popular right now because distributed grids are getting popular. And finally, we have a course of education about our standards and activities. IoT, similarly, we have the IEEE 2413 standards family, but this is not the only IoT standard that's out there, of course. We provide certification, for instance, on sensors. So we have a variety of standards on sensors. And then finally, some education on IoT technologies. And then in communications and networking, again, very popular standards within IEEE, including the whole 802.x series, so 802.3 for wired, 802.11 for wireless, and many others. Dynamic spectrum, power line communications, and of course, maybe most of interest to the audience today are P1934.x and P1935 set of standards, which are chaired by John Zhao, and in the edge, fog, and cloud area. And so we offer some education, and actually IEEE offers an entire community called Future Networks that addresses all of the networking and communications technologies going forward. So that's just my brief introduction to the IEEE SA. I hope that some of this is of interest of you, and as you go through the program today and tomorrow, you come up with some ideas for standards or for pre-standards or for open source. And if you do, please let me know. My email address is here. And I hope everyone has a great session over the next couple of days. And with that, thank you very much.